My laptop screen glowed in the darkness of my apartment, the only light I'd allowed myself for the past 3 hours. I was hunched over the keyboard, fingers flying across keys as I translated another intercepted conversation from Italian to English. The words on the page made my stomach turn. Shipping routes. Payments. Code names that probably belonged to real people who'd end up dead or disappeared. I was 29 years old, and somehow I'd become the person the FBI called when they needed someone who could translate organized crime communications without flinching. Freelance work, good money, no benefits, no protection, just Amanda Morgan and her linguistics degree trying to pay for her grandmother's medical bills one translation at a time. The document I was working on tonight was particularly ugly. Verciani's organization coordinating with Russian contacts about something big moving through Chicago's ports next month. I'd been at it since 7, and now my phone showed 10:47 p.m. Almost done. Just 2 more pages and I could send this off to Agent Morrison and collapse into bed. My front door exploded inward. I didn't have time to scream. Didn't have time to run. 3 men in dark clothing poured into my small apartment like smoke, moving with terrifying efficiency. One grabbed my laptop before I could close it. Another had my arms wrenched behind my back before my brain caught up to what was happening. Amanda Morgan? The third man spoke with an accent I recognized instantly from thousands of hours of translation work. Eastern European. Russian, maybe. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack bone. Please, I managed. I don't know what you want. Take whatever. We know what you are, he said. His face was all hard angles and cold eyes. Translator. FBI pet. They dragged me out of my apartment and down the back stairs. I tried to scream, but a hand clamped over my mouth, fingers digging into my cheeks hard enough to bruise. My neighbor's door stayed closed. The hallway remained empty. Nobody was coming to save me. They shoved me into the back of a black sedan with tinted windows. 1 man on either side of me, the third driving. We moved through Chicago streets like we were invisible. And maybe we were. How many people looked away from cars like this, knowing instinctively that whatever was happening inside was none of their business? 20 minutes. That's how long it took to drive from my modest apartment in a decent neighborhood to an industrial area I'd never seen before. Warehouses lined the street, most of them dark and abandoned. The car pulled into one through a side entrance that had been pried open, and my last hope died. This was where I was going to die. They hauled me out of the car and across a concrete floor that smelled of rust and old oil. Overhead lights flickered, casting shadows that moved like living things. In the center of the warehouse, a man waited. Sergio Verciani. I'd never seen him in person, but I'd translated enough conversations about him to recognize the description. Mid-50s, expensive suit that looked wrong in this environment, dark hair going silver at the temples. He was smoking a cigarette, the ember glowing orange in the dim light. Miss Morgan. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. That scared me more than anything else had. Do you know who I am? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Then you know why you're here. He took a drag from his cigarette, exhaled slowly. You translated something that belongs to me. Conversations that were private. I work for the FBI, I said, hating how my voice shook. They give me documents. I don't ask questions. I just translate. And who did you share this translation with? He stepped closer. Besides your government friends? No one, I swear. Just Agent Morrison. That's it. That's all. His hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap knocked me sideways and I tasted blood. One of the men holding me jerked me back upright. I don't believe you, Verciani said calmly. You see, we have someone inside. They tell us things, and they tell us you've been asking questions, making copies. That's not true. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I don't make copies. I never... Kill her, Verciani said to the men behind me. Make it look like robbery. My legs gave out. I was on my knees before I realized I'd fallen, the concrete cold and unforgiving beneath me. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't control them. This was it. This was how I died. On my knees in a warehouse, begging a man who'd already decided I was disposable. Please, the word tore out of me. Please, I have a grandmother. She's sick. She needs me. Please, I'll do anything. I'll leave Chicago. I'll never translate again. I'll disappear. Please. Versiani looked down at me with something like pity, which was worse than hatred. At least hatred meant I mattered enough to feel something about. I believe you would, he said. Unfortunately, you know too much, and I can't risk— The warehouse door opened. Heavy footsteps echoed across the concrete. Multiple sets. Versiani's expression shifted from calm control to carefully masked irritation. I twisted my head, desperate to see who was interrupting my execution. Men in dark suits entered through the main entrance, moving with the kind of confidence that came from owning whatever room they walked into. 6 of them. No, 7. They fanned out in a loose formation, and in the center walked a man who made everyone else look like shadows. He was tall, maybe 6'2" or 6'3", with black hair and a face that belonged on Roman coins. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, eyes so dark they looked black in this light. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, and moved like violence was something he kept in his pocket for convenience. Versiani. His voice rolled through the warehouse, deep and controlled. I wasn't aware you'd be using the neutral zone tonight. Tavernucci. Versiani's tone went carefully neutral. This is private business. Your meeting isn't until 11:30. It's 11:20. The man called Tavernucci glanced at an expensive watch on his wrist. And I prefer to arrive early, assess the situation. His gaze swept the warehouse and landed on me. I was still on my knees, tears streaming down my face, blood on my lip from Versiani's slap. I must have looked pathetic, broken, exactly like someone who'd been begging for her life, because that's what I'd been doing. Something changed in Tavernucci's expression. It was subtle, just a tightening around his eyes, but I felt it like a physical thing. His stare locked onto me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. What is this? He asked quietly. Internal matter, Versiani said. Nothing that concerns you. Everything that happens in neutral territory concerns all families present. Tavernucci still hadn't looked away from me. Who is she? A translator who made poor choices. She works for the government? Versiani hesitated. Freelance. She translated something sensitive. And you brought her here. To neutral ground. To execute her. Tavernucci finally dragged his gaze away from me and fixed it on Versiani. Without consulting the families who share this space. I didn't think— No, you didn't. Tavernucci's voice dropped to something dangerous. This territory is neutral by agreement. No blood spilled without unanimous consent. Those are the rules we all swore to uphold. She's a threat to my operations, Versiani said, his pleasant mask slipping. I have the right to protect my interests. Then take her somewhere else. Tavernucci gestured to the warehouse around them. This place is sacred ground. You violate it. You violate the treaty. Is she worth starting a war? I couldn't breathe. They were talking about me like I was a chess piece, but at least they were talking. Every second of conversation was a second I wasn't dead. Versiani's jaw clenched. Are you seriously going to defend some random translator? I'm defending the rules. Tavernucci moved closer to where I knelt on the floor. Each step was measured, controlled. When he reached me, he stopped. Look at me. I looked up. His eyes weren't black, I realized. They were dark brown, so deep they caught the light like whiskey and crystal. What's your name? He asked. Amanda. Amanda Morgan. My voice came out barely above a whisper. How old are you, Amanda Morgan? 29. Something flickered across his face again. Pain, maybe. Or memory. He reached up and grasped something around his neck. A gold chain I hadn't noticed before, with a pendant hanging from it. He pulled it over his head in one smooth motion. This woman is under Tavernucci protection, he said, and draped the chain around my neck. The metal was warm from his skin. I stared down at the pendant resting against my chest. An intricate design, old and clearly valuable. Some kind of family crest. What are you doing? Versiani demanded. She's my fiancée. Tavernucci said it like he was commenting on the weather. Calm, certain, absolute. As of this moment, she's family. You touch her, you touch me. You kill her. You start a war. So I'll ask again, Sergio. Is she worth it? The warehouse went dead silent. I couldn't process what was happening. Fiancé? I'd never seen this man before in my life, but the pendant around my neck felt heavy, significant. And the way Versiani's men had gone rigid told me this wasn't a bluff. You can't do this, Versiani said, but his voice lacked conviction. I just did. Tavernucci extended a hand down to me. Get up, Amanda. I stared at his hand. Strong fingers, a few old scars across the knuckles. This was a man who'd done violence with his bare hands, and would again. But right now, those hands were offering me life. I took his hand. He pulled me to my feet effortlessly, steadying me when my legs threatened to give out again. Up close, he smelled like cedar, and something darker. Expensive cologne and danger. This isn't over, Versiani said. It is for tonight. Tavernucci kept himself positioned between me and Versiani's men. We still have business to discuss. My business, at 11:30. Can you be professional? Or should I tell the council you're too unstable to maintain agreements? Versiani's face went through several shades of red before settling on controlled fury. We'll talk. 30 minutes. Good. Tavernucci's hand settled on my lower back, proprietary and protective at once. Gentlemen, he guided me toward the exit where his men waited. I moved mechanically, my brain unable to catch up with my body. The pendant bounced against my chest with each step, a physical reminder that my life had just changed in ways I couldn't begin to understand. One of Tavernucci's men opened the back door of a sleek black SUV. Tavernucci helped me inside, then slid in beside me. The door closed, sealing us in leather-scented darkness. Drive, he said to the man behind the wheel. As we pulled away from the warehouse, I finally found my voice. Why did you save me? He was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at Chicago's passing lights. You reminded me of someone, he finally said. Someone I couldn't save before. His hand moved to his ear, touching the edge of a scar I'd noticed earlier. When he looked at me again, his eyes held something I recognized because I saw it in my mirror every day. Grief. What's your name? I asked. Daniel Tavernucci. He said it like I should know who he was, and maybe I should have. But I'd spent my life translating other people's words, not learning the players in Chicago's underworld. And you, Amanda Morgan, just became the most complicated thing in my life. I touched the pendant at my throat. I don't understand what just happened. You will. His gaze held mine. By tomorrow morning, every family in Chicago will know you're under my protection. That comes with rules, safety, but also restrictions. Your life as you knew it is over. I don't have a choice. You made your choice when you took my hand. His voice wasn't cruel, just honest. Now you live with the consequences. We both do. The SUV merged onto the highway, carrying me away from my apartment, my life, my freedom. Carrying me toward something I couldn't name and didn't want. But I was alive. And right now, that was good enough. The city blurred past the tinted windows, streetlights painting golden streaks across Daniel Tavernucci's face. I sat rigid in the leather seat, my hands clenched in my lap, the gold pendant heavy against my chest. Every breath felt stolen, temporary, like any moment someone would realize the mistake and come to collect what they were owed, my death. Where are we going? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, small, fractured. Somewhere safe. Daniel didn't look at me, his attention fixed on something outside the window, or maybe on nothing at all. My home. It's protected. For how long? As long as necessary. He finally turned, those dark eyes assessing me in a way that made my skin prickle. Not threatening, exactly. More like he was taking inventory of something he'd just acquired and wasn't sure what to do with. The engagement isn't real, Amanda, but it needs to appear real. Convincingly real. For at least 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of my life, just gone. Handed over to a stranger because the alternative was a bullet. What does that mean? I asked. Appear real? It means you live under my roof. You're seen with me publicly. You wear my family's symbols. His hand gestured vaguely toward the pendant. To everyone outside this vehicle, you're my future wife. That's the only thing keeping you alive right now. The SUV took a turn onto a private road I didn't recognize. Trees lined both sides, their branches creating a canopy that blocked out the Chicago sky. We were leaving the city proper, heading somewhere more isolated. My pulse kicked up again. And if I refuse, then Verciani kills you within 24 hours. Daniel's tone held no judgment, just fact. He won't forget. Men like him don't. The only reason he left that warehouse without putting a bullet in your skull is because killing you now would mean war with my family. But the moment you're no longer under my protection, he made a gesture like smoke dissipating. You disappear. I pressed my back against the seat, trying to find something solid to anchor myself to. This couldn't be real. 6 hours ago, I'd been translating documents in my apartment, worrying about my grandmother's medical bills and whether I'd remembered to buy coffee. Now I was engaged to a Mafia boss whose name I'd only learned 20 minutes ago. I have a life, I said. A job. My grandmother needs me. I can't just vanish. You won't vanish. You'll continue working. Daniel's expression softened slightly. I'm not a prison warden, Amanda. I'm offering protection. That requires certain constraints, but you'll have freedom within them. The SUV slowed, approaching an enormous iron gate set between stone pillars. A guard stepped out from a booth, saw our vehicle, and immediately triggered the gate's opening. We passed through into what could only be described as an estate. The main house rose ahead, all modern lines and strategic lighting that made it look like something from an architecture magazine. Glass and stone and power. This was where he lived. This was where I would live now. The vehicle stopped in a circular driveway. Daniel's door opened first. One of his men. I hadn't even noticed how many were in the convoy behind us, standing ready. Daniel stepped out, then offered his hand to help me. I ignored it and climbed out on my own. My legs shook but held. Stubborn, he observed. That'll either save your life or end it. A man emerged from the house's entrance, older than Daniel by maybe a decade, with silver threading through dark hair. He moved with the same controlled efficiency as everyone else in Daniel's orbit. Former military, maybe. Or just someone who'd survived long enough in this world to know how to carry himself. Franco, Daniel said by way of introduction. My second. He'll show you to your room. Room? I clutched my arms around myself, suddenly aware I was still wearing the clothes I'd put on that morning. Jeans and a green sweater that now felt wrong, contaminated by everything that had happened. I don't have anything. No clothes, no. We'll handle it. Daniel cut me off, not unkindly. Tomorrow. Tonight you need rest. Rest. As if I could possibly sleep after this. Franco inclined his head toward me. A gesture of respect that seemed strange coming from a man who probably killed people for a living. This way, Miss Morgan. I followed him inside, too numb to do anything else. The interior matched the exterior's aesthetic. Expensive, minimal, carefully curated. Original artwork on the walls. Furniture that looked like it cost more than my yearly salary. But there was something else too. Something I hadn't expected. Books. Actual books lining built-in shelves, worn spines suggesting they'd been read and not just displayed. Franco led me up a curved staircase to the second floor, then down a hallway to a door near the end. He opened it, revealing a suite that was larger than my entire apartment. Cream-colored walls, a massive bed with gray linens, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking grounds I couldn't fully see in the darkness. Bathrooms through there. Franco pointed to a door on the left. Everything you need should be stocked. If it's not, there's a phone on the nightstand. Press 3. Someone will come. Someone, not him. Not Daniel. Just someone. Thank you, I managed. He left without another word, the door closing with a soft click that somehow felt final. I stood in the center of the room, unable to move. My reflection stared back at me from a mirror across the space. A 29-year-old woman with wild eyes and blood on her lip from Verciani's slap. The pendant hung around my neck like a noose made of gold. I touched it, the metal still warm. This was real. This was happening. Sleep was impossible. I lay on top of the covers, fully dressed, watching the ceiling fan rotate in lazy circles. My mind wouldn't stop racing. What would happen to my apartment? My grandmother at the care facility. Would they still let me visit? And my work for the FBI? God. Agent Morrison was going to lose his mind when I didn't show up with that translation. Dawn crept through the windows gradually, turning the sky from black to gray to pale gold. I watched the entire transformation, sleepless and hollow. A knock came at the door around 8. I sat up, my body protesting every movement. "Come in." Daniel entered carrying a tray. Coffee, from the smell of it. Fruit. Toast. He'd changed from last night's suit into dark pants and a charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Without the formal armor, he looked younger. 34, I remembered him saying. Only 5 years older than me, but the weight in his eyes suggested a much longer life. "You didn't sleep," he observed, setting the tray on a table near the windows. Observant. His mouth quirked, almost a smile. "We need to talk, properly. But first, you need to eat." "I'm not hungry. I don't care." He poured coffee into a cup, added sugar without asking if I wanted it. "Sit." Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't a request. I sat. He handed me the coffee, and I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic, grateful for something to hold on to. Daniel took the chair across from me, his movements deliberate. "Sergio Verciani has been expanding his territory aggressively for the past 8 months. He's trying to take control of the ports, the trafficking routes, anything that generates serious cash flow. You translated intercepted communications that document his operations. That makes you a liability he can't afford to leave alive. The FBI," I started, "can't protect you." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You're a freelance contractor, Amanda, not a federal employee. That means you're not entitled to official protection programs. And even if you were, Verciani has a federal judge in his pocket. Maybe more than one. Witness protection would put you in the system, and the system leaks. You'd be found within a month." My coffee cup trembled in my hands. "So I'm just supposed to hide here? Play house with you for 6 months while everyone forgets I exist?" "No one's going to forget you exist. That's the point." He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture that seemed unconscious. "Tired. The engagement announcement will spread through every family in Chicago by noon today. You'll be visible, protected, untouchable. That buys us time to figure out Verciani's full operation and shut it down properly." "Why?" I met his eyes, demanding honesty. "Why do you care? You said I reminded you of someone, but that's not enough. People don't risk war over strangers just because of a memory." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and moved to the window, his back to me. "While you were pretending to sleep, I had Franco pull your files. Background, work history, everything." My stomach dropped. "That's an invasion of... 7 years ago, you translated for a federal trial. United States versus Anthony Tavernucci." He turned to face me. "My father." The coffee cup nearly slipped from my hands. "I don't remember." "You wouldn't. There were multiple translators throughout that case. You only handled 2 days of testimony from Italian witnesses, but I read the transcripts afterward." His expression was unreadable. "Your work was impeccable, impartial. You didn't embellish or soften anything. Just translated exactly what was said. That integrity helped my father's case when other translators had been less professional." I searched my memory, trying to pull up details from 7 years ago. I'd been 22, fresh out of graduate school, desperate for any work that paid. The trial had been one of my first major assignments. "Your father. What happened to him?" "Life sentence. Federal prison in Pennsylvania." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He died there 3 years ago. Heart attack. He was 58. I'm sorry." "Don't be." He knew the risks. He crossed back to where I sat, crouching down so we were eye level. "But that trial taught me something about you, Amanda Morgan. You have integrity. You don't lie, even when it might be easier. And last night, when I saw you on your knees begging for your life, you reminded me of someone else." "Who?" "My sister. Lucia." The name came out rough, painful. "She was 19 when she died. 5 years ago. Wrong place, wrong time. Caught in crossfire between my family and the Russians." His hand moved to his ear, touching that scar I'd noticed. I got this trying to reach her. Didn't matter. She was already gone. Grief lived in his face, etched into the lines around his eyes. I recognized it because I'd seen it in mirrors after my parents died. The kind of loss that didn't heal, just scabbed over and ached forever. I couldn't save her, he continued quietly, but I could save you. And when I realized you were the translator who'd helped my father, it felt like destiny. I finished the thought, he couldn't. I don't believe in destiny, but I believe in debts. He stood, offering me his hand again. You helped my family once, even if you didn't know it. Now I'm helping you. That's the arrangement. This time, I took his hand, let him pull me to my feet. We stood close enough that I could smell cedar and smoke on him again, see the faint stubble along his jaw he hadn't bothered shaving. 6 months, I said. And then I get my life back. 6 months. He agreed. But there are rules. You don't leave the property without security. You don't contact anyone from your old life without clearing it through me first. And you don't ever, under any circumstances, lie to me. Integrity goes both ways. I want to keep working. Translation work. Agreed. But only documents I approve. Nothing that connects back to active investigations against my family. That stung. I'm not compromising my ethics for you. I'm not asking you to. His hand still held mine, warm and solid. I'm asking you to stay alive long enough for me to end this war without more casualties. Can you do that? Could I? Live in this gilded cage with a man who'd saved me for reasons that tangled grief and guilt and debt into something I didn't understand? Pretend to be engaged to someone I'd known for less than 12 hours? Give up my freedom to preserve my life? Outside the window, the sun had fully risen, painting the grounds in golden light. Somewhere in the city, my grandmother was waking up in her care facility, wondering why I hadn't called. Somewhere, Agent Morrison was probably trying to reach me about that unfinished translation. Somewhere, my real life was continuing without me. But I wasn't there. I was here. And this was the price of staying alive. Yes, I finally said. I can do that. Daniel released my hand and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a ring. Antique gold with an intricate design, clearly old and valuable. The same crest from the pendant, rendered in miniature. For appearances, he said, taking the ring from the box. The pendant was temporary. This makes it official in the eyes of everyone who matters. He took my left hand, his touch surprisingly gentle, and slid the ring onto my 4th finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for me, which was impossible, but felt true anyway. Welcome to the Tavernucci family, Amanda Morgan. His dark eyes held mine. Try not to get killed. 2 weeks passed in a strange rhythm I couldn't quite name. Days blurred together inside Daniel's estate, each one measured by small rituals that became familiar too quickly. Morning coffee alone in the kitchen. Hours translating documents Daniel left for me. Financial records, legitimate business contracts. Nothing that touched the criminal side of his world. Lunch brought by staff whose names I learned slowly. Camilla, Franco, Roberto. They moved through the house like ghosts, present but never intrusive. Daniel himself was a different story. For the first 5 days, I barely saw him. He left before I woke and returned long after I'd retreated to my room. His absence was almost worse than his presence would have been. It gave me too much time to think about what I'd become. A prisoner pretending to be a princess. A woman wearing another woman's ring, playing a role in a production I didn't understand. On the 6th day, he appeared at dinner. I'd been eating alone in the formal dining room, something I'd grown accustomed to. The table could seat 20 easily, and I always chose the same chair near the windows where I could watch the grounds. That night, I was halfway through pasta when the door opened and Daniel walked in, still wearing his suit from whatever business had occupied him all day. Mind if I join you? He asked, though he was already pulling out the chair across from me. It's your house. It's your house too, for now. He loosened his tie, a gesture that made him look more human and less like the marble statue I'd built him into over our days apart. How are you settling in? I'm alive. That's more than I expected 2 weeks ago. Something flickered in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Low bar. Realistic bar. I set down my fork, studying him properly for the first time in days. He looked tired, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Or maybe I just hadn't noticed. "Where have you been?" "Managing the fallout from our engagement." He poured himself wine from the bottle on the table. "Vertiani is not pleased. Neither are several other families who feel I made a move without consulting them." "Politics. Am I supposed to apologize for not dying conveniently?" "No." He met my gaze over the rim of his glass. "You're supposed to stay alive. That's the only job you have right now." The weight of his stare made something twist in my chest. Not fear, exactly. Something else I didn't want to examine too closely. We ate in silence for a while, the kind that wasn't entirely uncomfortable. When I reached for more wine, our hands brushed. The contact lasted maybe half a second, but I felt it like electricity. "Tomorrow," Daniel said, pulling back. "We need to talk about public appearances. The engagement needs to be visible, convincing." "How convincing?" "Enough that no one questions it." His eyes held mine. "There's a charity event Friday night. Art auction for the Children's Hospital. High society, old money, and half the families in Chicago. We'll announce the engagement formally." My stomach dropped. "That's in 5 days." "Yes. I don't have anything to wear to something like that. Already handled. Designer is coming tomorrow to fit you." He leaned back in his chair, watching me with that assessing look I was starting to recognize. "You'll need to be comfortable with me. Touching, eye contact. The kind of behavior that suggests we're actually in love. We're not. I know. But they can't." He stood, collecting his plate. "Get some rest, Amanda. Friday is going to be a long night." The next 3 days passed in a flurry of preparations I hadn't asked for. The designer arrived with samples in colors I would never have chosen for myself. Rich burgundy, deep emerald, midnight blue. I kept pointing to the gray options, the safe choices, until Daniel intervened. "The green," he said, standing in the doorway of my room while I modeled the options. "That one." It was emerald silk that clung to my body in ways that made me feel exposed and powerful at once. The neckline dipped lower than I was comfortable with, and the fabric caught the light like water. "It's too much," I protested. "It's perfect." His voice had gone rough around the edges. "Trust me." I did, which was its own kind of problem. Thursday evening, Daniel found me in the library, a room I'd claimed as my refuge during the long hours alone. Floor-to-ceiling books, comfortable chairs, windows that overlooked the gardens. I was curled up reading when he appeared. "We need to practice," he announced. "Practice what?" "Dancing." He extended his hand. "The event will have music. People will expect us to dance together. And you're currently looking at me like I'm a stranger. You are a stranger. To everyone else, I'm your fiancé. Act like it." There was no cruelty in his tone, just fact. "Come on, up." I took his hand because I didn't have a choice. He pulled me into the center of the room, one hand settling at my waist, the other clasping mine. The position was formal, appropriate, and yet it felt like the most intimate thing that had happened between us. "Do you know how to waltz?" he asked. "Not even a little." "Then follow my lead." He began moving, and I stumbled trying to keep up. "Relax. You're rigid. I'm being held by a man who could kill me with his bare hands. Relaxation isn't exactly on the menu." His mouth quirked. Almost a smile. "I'm not going to kill you, Amanda, but I might step on your foot if you don't loosen up." Something about the absurdity of the moment, standing in a library learning to waltz with a mafia boss, made me laugh. Actually laugh for the first time since this nightmare began. The sound surprised us both. "There," Daniel murmured. "That's better. Now move with me. Feel the rhythm." We danced for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Gradually, my body learned to anticipate his movements. When he turned, I turned. When he stepped forward, I stepped back. Our breathing synchronized, our bodies finding a harmony that shouldn't have existed. When the invisible music stopped, we were standing too close, his hand still at my waist, mine still on his shoulder. I could feel his heartbeat through the thin fabric of his shirt, strong and steady. "Amanda," he said quietly. I looked up. His dark eyes were focused on my mouth. and I knew what was about to happen a split second before it did. He leaned in, slowly, giving me time to pull away, to stop this before it became something we couldn't take back. I didn't move. His lips were a breath away from mine when he stopped, drew back, released me entirely, and stepped away like I'd burned him. That's enough practice for tonight. His voice was carefully controlled, giving nothing away. You'll do fine tomorrow. He left before I could respond, leaving me standing alone in the library with my heart racing and my skin still warm where he'd touched me. Friday arrived too quickly. The dress fit perfectly. Hair and makeup artists appeared to transform me into someone I barely recognized in the mirror. Sophisticated, elegant, expensive. The ring on my finger caught the light as I turned, examining myself from every angle. I looked like I belonged in Daniel's world. That should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like putting on armor. The charity event was held at the Chicago Art Institute, a venue I'd visited exactly once on a field trip in high school. Now I arrived in the back of Daniel's SUV, flanked by security, wearing designer silk and enough diamonds to fund my grandmother's care for a decade. Daniel took my hand as we exited the vehicle, his grip warm and solid. "Remember," he murmured against my ear. "We're in love. Desperately, inconveniently in love. Sell it. How? Watch me." His arm slid around my waist, pulling me against his side. "And follow my lead." We entered through a side entrance reserved for major donors, which apparently Daniel was. The gallery space was transformed. Candlelight and champagne, art on the walls worth more than most people made in a lifetime. And everywhere I looked, people in clothes that cost what I used to make in 6 months. Daniel Tavernucci. An older woman in crimson approached immediately, her sharp eyes assessing me with the precision of a jeweler examining a diamond. I heard rumors, but I didn't believe them. "You're engaged?" "Amanda Morgan." Daniel's hand tightened on my waist. "My fiancé. Amanda, this is Mrs. Helena Prescott. She runs the hospital board." I extended my hand, and she took it, her grip surprisingly strong. "How did you two meet?" "Business," Daniel said smoothly. She was translating documents for a mutual associate. I took one look at her and knew I was in trouble. The lie rolled off his tongue like honey. I forced myself to smile, to lean into him slightly like a woman who actually wanted to be there. "How romantic," Mrs. Prescott said, though her tone suggested she found nothing romantic about it at all. "I'm sure we'll see more of you, Miss Morgan." She drifted away, and I exhaled. "You did well," Daniel murmured. I felt like I was being examined for flaws. "You were. Welcome to my world." The evening progressed in waves of introductions and careful conversations. Daniel never left my side, his presence both protective and possessive. Every touch was deliberate. A hand at the small of my back, fingers brushing mine, his shoulder against mine when we stood close. To anyone watching, we were a couple completely absorbed in each other. And somewhere in the performance, it stopped feeling entirely like acting. When the music started, Daniel led me onto the floor. The waltz we'd practiced came back to me naturally, muscle memory taking over where anxiety tried to freeze me. "See?" he said as we moved together. "You're a natural. I have a good teacher." His hand flexed against my waist. "Amanda," Daniel Tavernucci. The voice cut through the music, sharp and cold. "Congratulations on your engagement." We stopped dancing. Turned. Sergio Verciani stood at the edge of the floor, perfectly dressed in a navy suit, his expression pleasant in a way that made my skin crawl. "Sergio," Daniel's tone dropped several degrees. "Didn't expect to see you here. I support children's causes. Surely you don't begrudge me that." His eyes moved to me. "Miss Morgan, you're looking well. Much better than the last time I saw you, when I'd been on my knees begging for my life." "Thank you," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's remarkable, really," Verciani continued. "How quickly situations can change. One moment you're nobody. The next you're engaged to one of Chicago's most influential men." He smiled, and it was all teeth. "I hope you're enjoying your new circumstances. While they last." Daniel moved between us, blocking me from Verciani's view. "Careful, Sergio. Threats at charity events are bad form." Was that a threat? Verciani raised his hands in mock innocence. I was merely commenting on the temporary nature of engagements. So many break up these days. Tragic, really. This one won't. Daniel's voice carried absolute certainty. Amanda is family now. And we protect our family. I suggest you remember that. They stared at each other. Two predators sizing up territory. Then Verciani nodded once and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until Daniel turned back to me. Are you all right? No. My hands were shaking. He was threatening me. In a room full of people. He was testing boundaries. Daniel's jaw was tight. Seeing how far he can push before I break the peace. Come on, we're leaving. He guided me through the crowd with single-minded focus, ignoring attempts to stop us for conversation. The SUV was waiting outside, engine already running. We climbed in, and the moment the door closed, I could breathe again. I'm sorry, Daniel said as we pulled away. I should have anticipated he'd be there. It's not your fault. I twisted the ring on my finger, the metal suddenly feeling too tight. He's going to kill me eventually, isn't he? No. Daniel's hand covered mine, stopping the anxious movement. I won't let that happen. You can't watch me every second. Actually, I can. His thumb traced the edge of my hand, a gesture that felt unconscious. Natural. And I will. For however long it takes to end this. The SUV's interior felt smaller suddenly, the space between us charged with something I didn't know how to name. His hand was still on mine. My heart was racing again, but not from fear. Daniel, I started, not knowing how to finish. He looked at me. Really looked. And I saw it mirrored in his expression. Whatever this was building between us, he felt it too. The recognition in his eyes was unmistakable. And terrifying. We should get you home, he said, pulling his hand back, creating distance again. Tomorrow we'll discuss next steps, but tonight, you're safe. I wanted to tell him that safety wasn't what scared me anymore. That the real danger was the way my pulse jumped when he touched me. The way I'd started looking forward to our dinners together. The way his absence left me feeling incomplete. But I said nothing. Just nodded and watched Chicago's lights blur past the window, carrying us back to the estate where I was both prisoner and protected, where I was falling for the man who'd saved me. And that was more dangerous than any threat Verciani could ever make. The morning after the charity event, Daniel found me in the library translating contracts for one of his legitimate businesses. He carried a laptop and a flash drive, his expression more serious than usual. I need your help, he said, settling into the chair across from me. Real help. Not just the facade we've been maintaining. I closed my own laptop. What kind of help? Translation. He plugged the flash drive into his computer and turned the screen toward me. Intercepted communications between Verciani and his Russian contacts. I need to know what they're planning. The text on screen was a mix of Italian and Russian, coded language that would be meaningless to most people. But I'd spent years learning to read between the lines of criminal communications. This is dangerous information, I said slowly. If anyone found out I translated this, they won't. This stays between us. He leaned back, studying me. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. Verciani's planning something bigger than just territorial expansion. I need to know what. I looked at the screen, then at him. At the man who'd saved my life and given me a gilded cage to live in. All right. But I work better at night. Fewer distractions. Tonight then. My office, 10 o'clock. That evening, I found myself in Daniel's private office for the first time. It was nothing like I expected. Books everywhere. Architecture texts, Italian poetry, classical literature. A grand piano stood in the corner, sheet music scattered across its surface. This wasn't the office of a simple criminal. This was the space of someone with depth I hadn't anticipated. You play? I asked, touching the piano keys gently. My mother insisted. Daniel appeared beside me with 2 cups of coffee. She said a man who couldn't create beauty had no business judging it. Smart woman. She was. He set the coffee down. Died when I was 16. Cancer. We worked in comfortable silence for hours, me translating, him making notes. Around midnight, I stumbled across something that made my blood run cold. Daniel. I turned the laptop toward him. They're planning to hit your supply routes. Not just one, all of them. Simultaneously. His jaw tightened as he read. When? 3 weeks. They're coordinating with the Bratva. I pointed to another section. And they mention a judge. Someone who'll make sure any arrests stick this time. Versiani's not just trying to take territory. He's trying to destroy us completely. Daniel's hands flexed into fists before he consciously relaxed them. Thank you for this. It gives us time to prepare. You speak Italian, I observed. Why do you need me? I speak 4 languages. Italian, English, Spanish, Russian. But you? He met my eyes. You understand context, nuance, the way criminals code their language. That's worth more than fluency. How did a mafia boss end up speaking 4 languages? I wasn't supposed to be a mafia boss. He stood, moving to the piano. His fingers found keys, playing something soft and melancholy. I was studying architecture at Northwestern, had plans to design buildings that would outlast me. Then my father was arrested, my mother died, and suddenly I was responsible for 200 families who depended on Tavernucci protection. I listened to him play, watching the way his shoulders carried tension even in this moment of vulnerability. You could have walked away. No, I couldn't. The music stopped. My uncle wanted to take over. He would have run everything into the ground within a year, gotten good people killed. So I stepped up. I was 22. 22. Just a kid, really. Forced into a life he hadn't chosen, because the alternative was worse. I'm trying to get out, he continued quietly. Transition everything to legitimate businesses. Another 2 years, and the Tavernucci name will be clean. But men like Versiani don't want that. They need the old ways to survive. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his expression went dark. We need to go. Now. What's wrong? Your grandmother's facility. Security spotted suspicious vehicles in the area. He was already moving toward the door. It could be nothing, but I'm not taking chances. The drive to the care facility took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Daniel's men had already secured the building by the time we arrived, but my grandmother was fine, sitting in her room completely unaware of any danger. I'm going to check the perimeter, Daniel said, after we'd verified she was safe. Stay with Franco. I stayed with my grandmother instead, holding her hand while she told me stories she'd told 100 times before. Her memory was failing, but her warmth remained. When I finally emerged into the parking garage, Franco was on his phone, distracted. That's when they came. 2 men, moving fast from between parked cars. One grabbed my arm, yanking me toward a van with its door already open. I screamed, fought, remembered every self-defense move Daniel had insisted I learn. Then Daniel was there. He moved like violence incarnate, taking down the first man with brutal efficiency. The second pulled a knife. Daniel blocked, but the blade caught his shoulder, slicing through suit fabric and skin. He didn't even flinch, just disarmed the man and put him down hard. More of Daniel's men arrived, securing the attackers. Franco was apologizing profusely. Daniel waved him off, pressing his hand to his bleeding shoulder. I'm fine, he said when I reached him. It's nothing. You're bleeding everywhere. That's not nothing. I pulled his hand away to examine the wound. Deep enough to need stitches, but not life-threatening. We need to get you home. Back at the estate, I made him sit in his bathroom while I gathered medical supplies. His shirt was ruined, blood soaking through the expensive fabric. I helped him remove it, revealing a torso marked with old scars. Some surgical, others definitely not. You've done this before, I observed, cleaning the wound with steady hands. Occupational hazard. He watched me work, his dark eyes tracking my movements. You're good at this. My mother was a nurse. She taught me before she died. I prepared butterfly bandages since the cut wasn't quite deep enough for stitches. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts lately, but he wasn't talking about the physical wound. I worked carefully, closing the gash and bandaging it properly. When I finished, my fingers traced the old scar on his ear, the one from trying to save his sister. The touch was gentle, almost unconscious. I'm sorry you couldn't save her, I whispered. Daniel's hand covered mine, holding it against the scar. I'm scared, Amanda. I haven't been scared like this since the day she died. But with you," his voice roughened. "The thought of Verziani's men taking you tonight, they didn't. You stopped them. This time." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "What about next time? Or the time after that?" We sat like that for a long moment, his hand holding mine. The space between us charged with something neither of us wanted to name. Not desire exactly, though that was there. Something deeper. Recognition. Understanding. The knowledge that we were both carrying weights we couldn't put down. Finally, I pulled back. "You need rest. That shoulder will be sore tomorrow." "Amanda." "Good night, Daniel." I fled to my room before I could do something stupid like tell him I was falling for him. That somewhere between the fear and the facade, I'd started to care about the man behind the reputation. The architecture student who'd been forced to become something else. The brother still grieving his sister. The leader trying to protect 200 families while planning an escape. As I lay in bed that night, I touched my lips, imagining what it would feel like to kiss him. Not the scar on his ear this time. His mouth. To cross that line we'd been dancing around for weeks. But that was dangerous territory. More dangerous than Verziani, than the Russians, than any external threat. Because falling in love with Daniel Tavernucci meant risking a heart I wasn't sure I could afford to lose. 2 days after the attack at the care facility, Franco appeared in the library where I was working. His expression was grim, the kind of look that preceded bad news. "Miss Morgan," he said, "Daniel needs you in his office. Now." I followed him through the house, my stomach twisting. When we entered Daniel's office, the atmosphere was charged with cold fury. Daniel stood behind his desk, jaw tight, while a man I'd seen around the estate sat in a chair flanked by 2 guards. He was younger than Daniel, maybe late 20s, with similar dark features that suggested family connection. "Amanda," Daniel said without looking at me. "This is my cousin Anthony. He's been passing information about our security protocols to Verziani for the past 6 months." The man, Anthony, kept his eyes down, shoulders hunched. "I didn't know they'd go after her. I swear, Daniel. They said it was just about business. You gave them our rotation schedules, guard positions, safe house locations." Daniel's voice was ice. "You knew exactly what you were doing. I needed the money, the gambling debts. So you sold out your family." Daniel finally looked at him, and I saw something in his expression that made me step back involuntarily. This wasn't the man who'd taught me to waltz or played piano in the quiet hours. This was someone capable of terrible things. "You put Amanda's life at risk, my men's lives, for money." Anthony's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. Please, Daniel. We're blood. Family forgives. Family protects." Daniel moved around the desk with predatory grace. "You did the opposite. There's no forgiveness for that." I watched, frozen, as Daniel pronounced sentence. Not death. That would start a vendetta with Anthony's branch of the family. But exile. Complete and permanent. Anthony would leave Chicago within 24 hours, never contact any Tavernucci again, and live knowing he'd betrayed everyone who'd ever protected him. Anthony was crying when they let him out. I stood there, shaken by the coldness I'd witnessed. Daniel dismissed Franco and the guards, and suddenly we were alone in the heavy silence. "You're wondering if you made a mistake," he said quietly, not looking at me, accepting my protection. "Seeing what I'm capable of, he betrayed you, put people in danger, and I destroyed his life for it." Daniel turned finally, and I saw the weight in his eyes. "That's who I am, Amanda. This is the world you're living in now. Violence, consequences, no room for weakness. I should have been afraid. Should have backed away from this man who could ruin lives with a few cold words. Instead, I moved closer. "You exiled him instead of killing him," I said. "You're trying to break the cycle. It's not enough." His hands flexed at his sides. "It's never enough. Every decision I make, someone suffers. Every choice feels like I'm compromising pieces of who I wanted to be. Who did you want to be?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to the window, staring out at the grounds lit by security lights. "An architect. I wanted to design buildings that would last centuries, create beauty that outlived me. My mother used to say that's the highest calling, leaving the world more beautiful than you found it. You still can. No. He shook his head. I'm 34 years old, and I've killed 6 people. Ordered deaths of a dozen more. I've broken bones and burned buildings and extorted money from people who couldn't afford to lose it. All in the name of protecting my family, but that doesn't change what I am. What about the 200 families who depend on you? I stepped closer. The legitimate businesses you're building? The fact that you're trying to transition away from all of this? Redemption doesn't work like that. You don't get to wash away the blood. No, I agreed. But you get to choose what comes next, who you become from here. He turned to face me, and the vulnerability in his expression stole my breath. I never wanted this life, Amanda. I never wanted to be the man my father was, the man my grandfather was. But when I was 22, and my mother was dying, she made me promise I'd take care of everyone. All the families that depended on us. I couldn't say no to her. 22. I did the math. You've been carrying this for 12 years. 12 years of trying to be something I'm not. Trying to transition us to legitimacy, while old guard like Versiani fight me every step. Trying to protect people while becoming the thing they need protection from. His voice cracked. I'm so tired, Amanda. I closed the distance between us, taking his face in my hands, then stopped carrying it alone. You don't understand what you're saying. Getting close to me is dangerous. I'm already close. I'm already in danger. My thumb traced the scar on his ear, and somewhere between you saving my life and teaching me to dance, I stopped being afraid of you. You should be afraid. But his hand settled on my waist, contradicting his words. I'm falling for you, and that makes you a target. A weakness enemies can exploit. I'm not weak. No. His forehead touched mine. You're the strongest person I know, which terrifies me more. We stood like that, breathing the same air, teetering on the edge of something we couldn't take back. His hands tightened on my waist. My fingers slid into his hair. The world narrowed to just us. This moment. This impossible thing building between us. When he kissed me, it was nothing like I'd imagined. Not aggressive or possessive. Gentle. Almost reverent. Like I was something precious he was afraid to break. I kissed him back, pouring everything I couldn't say into the contact. The fear, the attraction, the impossible realization that I was falling in love with a man whose world was built on violence. His hands moved to my back, pulling me closer. Mine fisted in his shirt, anchoring myself to something solid. The kiss deepened, became something hungry and desperate. All the weeks of tension, of almost touches and loaded glances, finally breaking free. Then he pulled back, breathing hard. Amanda, wait. Don't. I tried to pull him back. Don't stop. I have to. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. When you come to me, if you come to me, it can't be like this. Not when you're emotional, and I've just shown you the worst parts of myself. Those aren't the worst parts. The worst parts would be if you didn't care. If you didn't carry the weight of your choices. You deserve better than this. Better than me. What if I don't want better? What if I want you? He kissed my forehead, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Then prove it. Tomorrow, next week. When you've had time to think clearly, to really understand what being with me means. If you still want this, I'll be here. He stepped back, creating distance that felt like miles. I stood there, lips still tingling, heart racing, wanting to argue but knowing he was right. This needed to be a choice made with clear eyes, not in the heat of the moment. Get some rest, he said quietly. Tomorrow brings new problems. It always does. I left his office feeling unmoored. Everything I thought I understood about my situation had shifted. I wasn't just Daniel Tavernucci's fake fiancé anymore. I wasn't just a woman under his protection. I was falling in love with him, and that changed everything. The knock on my door came at 7 a.m, 4 days after Daniel and I kissed in his office. I'd been avoiding him since then, taking meals in my room, claiming work deadlines. The truth was simpler and more complicated. I needed space to think about what I was becoming. Miss Morgan. Franco stood in the hallway, his expression neutral. There's someone here to see you. FBI. My stomach dropped. What? Agent Morrison. He's waiting in the east sitting room. Daniel thought you'd want to handle this privately. I dressed quickly, my hands shaking as I pulled on jeans and a gray sweater. Agent Morrison had been my main contact at the FBI for 3 years. He'd trusted me with sensitive translations, recommended me for high-paying contracts. Now he was here, in Daniel Tavernucci's house, and nothing good could come from that. He stood when I entered the room, his face lined with exhaustion. Amanda, it's good to see you're alive. Why wouldn't I be? You disappeared 3 weeks ago, missed deadlines, stopped answering calls. He gestured to the expensive furnishings around us. Now I find you living with Daniel Tavernucci. Care to explain? I sat down, buying time to construct a response that was honest, without being complete. I was threatened. Versiani's men came after me because of the translations I did. Daniel offered protection. Protection. Morrison's tone made it clear what he thought of that. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've switched sides. I haven't switched anywhere. I was kidnapped, nearly executed, and rescued. What was I supposed to do? Come to us. We could have protected you. Could you? I met his eyes. I'm a freelance contractor, not a federal employee. And Versiani has judges in his pocket. You know that. Morrison's jaw tightened because he did know. We need your testimony, Amanda. About what you translated. About what you've seen here. Tavernucci's been on our radar for years, but we can't build a case without inside information. There it was. The real reason for his visit. They wanted me to betray Daniel. I don't know anything about his illegal operations, I said carefully. He's kept me separate from that side of his business. But you're living here. Engaged to him. He pointed to the ring on my finger. Don't tell me you haven't seen things. Heard conversations. You're a translator, Amanda. You understand how criminal organizations communicate. I understand that testifying against Daniel Tavernucci would make me a target for every family in Chicago. We can protect you. Witness protection. New identity. Into a system Versiani's already compromised. I stood. I'm sorry, Agent Morrison. I can't help you. Can't or won't. He stood too, anger finally breaking through his professional demeanor. You're choosing a criminal over your duty to the law. I'm choosing to stay alive. My voice came out harder than intended. And if you knew what I've been through these past weeks, you wouldn't question that choice. He left without another word, but the damage was done. His visit had forced me to confront something I'd been avoiding. I was protecting Daniel. Actively, consciously protecting a man who ran a criminal organization. Not because I was being coerced, but because I cared about him. And that realization terrified me more than any threat Versiani could make. I found Daniel in his office an hour later. He looked up from paperwork, saw my expression, and immediately stood. What happened? Agent Morrison was here. The FBI wants me to testify against you. I wrapped my arms around myself. I told him no. Something flickered in Daniel's eyes. Relief, maybe. Or guilt. Amanda, I need space. The words came out in a rush. To think. To figure out what I'm doing here. What I'm becoming. I need to not be in this house surrounded by your world for a few days. His expression shuddered. Where would you go? Camilla's apartment. Just for 2 days. I need to talk to someone who isn't involved in all of this. It's not safe. Then send guards. Keep them outside, discreet. But please, Daniel, I can't think clearly when you're 10 feet away. When I can still feel your kiss on my lips. When I'm falling in love with you and losing myself in the process. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. 2 days. Franco will coordinate security. But Amanda, if anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. I will. I packed a small bag and left within the hour, Franco driving me to Camilla's building in downtown Chicago. True to Daniel's word, the security was invisible but present. I spotted at least 2 of his men positioned on the street. Camilla answered her door in pajamas, her eyes widening. Amanda, what are you doing here? Can I stay for a couple days? I'll explain everything. She pulled me inside, and for the next few hours I told her everything. The translations, Versiani, the fake engagement that felt increasingly real. She listened without judgment, just absorbed information like the good journalist she was. You're in love with him, she said when I finished. I don't know what I am. Yes, you do. You're just scared to admit it. She squeezed my hand. And honestly, I get it. This is terrifying. But Amanda, you need to decide what you want. Not what's safe or logical. What you actually want. I spent that night on her couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to answer that question. What did I want? My old life back? Impossible. Daniel out of the criminal world entirely? He was trying, but it would take time. To stop feeling this connection to a man whose hands had blood on them. Too late for that. The next evening, Camilla went out for groceries. I stayed behind, exhausted from another sleepless night. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. Amanda Morgan? The voice was unfamiliar. Male. Cold. Who is this? You have something we want. We have something you want. Check your messages. The line went dead. A moment later, a video message arrived. Camilla, bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. Her mouth was gagged, her eyes wide with fear. A man's voice spoke off camera. Midnight tonight. Port of Chicago, Warehouse 12. You come alone. We trade. You bring Tavernucci or his men. Your friend dies. You don't come at all. Your friend dies. Simple choices, Miss Morgan. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. This was Versiani. It had to be. He'd taken Camilla to get to me. I could call Daniel. Should call Daniel. Let him handle this with his resources and his men. But the message was clear. They'd kill Camilla if I involved him. Unless. I pulled up Daniel's number and called. It went to voicemail immediately. He was probably in a meeting. Which was perfect. I left a detailed message, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Daniel, it's me. Listen carefully. Versiani's men took Camilla. They want to trade her for me at the Port of Chicago. Warehouse 12, midnight tonight. They said to come alone, but I'm leaving this message at 11:15. That gives you 45 minutes to get there before I arrive. I'm not being stupid or suicidal. I'm giving you time to position your men. But I can't risk Camilla's life by not showing up at all. The small pistol you gave me is in my bag. I'm bringing it. I trust you'll be there in time. If you're not, my voice cracked. If you're not, thank you for everything. For saving me. For showing me what it means to actually be protected by someone. I hung up before I could say more. Before I could say I love you. I grabbed my bag, checked the pistol Daniel had insisted I carry, and left Camilla's apartment. One of Daniel's security men tried to stop me on the street, but I told him I was going to the all-night pharmacy. He let me pass, probably already alerting Daniel about my movement. The drive to the port took 20 minutes. Warehouse 12 sat at the edge of the complex, dark and isolated. I parked and checked my phone. 11:57. Daniel would have gotten my message by now. Would he come? I walked toward the warehouse, the pistol heavy in my jacket pocket. The door was open, spilling yellow light onto the concrete. I stepped inside. Camilla was exactly where she'd been in the video, still bound to the chair. Relief flooded through me. She was alive. 2 men flanked her, both armed, and in the center of the space, looking pleased with himself, stood Sergio Versiani. Miss Morgan, so punctual. He smiled. And so predictable. You actually came. Let her go. That was the deal. Was it? He stepped closer. I don't recall promising anything except a trade. But here's the thing about trades. They only work if both parties survive to complete them. Ice filled my veins. You're not letting either of us go. Very perceptive. No, I'm going to kill you both and make it look like Tavernucci did it. A lover's quarrel gone wrong. His fake fiancée and her nosy journalist friend, eliminated to tie up loose ends. The families will turn on him, and I'll be there to pick up the pieces. He pulled a gun. It's actually quite elegant. My hand moved to my pocket, but one of his men was faster, pressing a gun to the back of my head. Drop it, he ordered. I let the pistol fall. This was bad. Daniel wasn't here yet. I'd miscalculated the timing, or he hadn't gotten the message. Or the warehouse doors exploded inward. Daniel's men poured through every entrance simultaneously, moving with military precision. Gunfire erupted. I dropped to the floor, covering my head. Someone shouted commands. More shots. The man who'd been guarding me fell, his weapon clattering away. Then strong hands pulled me up. Daniel, his face set in fierce determination. Are you hurt? No. Camila, Franco has her. He pushed me behind him as more of Versiani's men emerged from the shadows. This had been a trap within a trap, Versiani expecting Daniel to come despite the warnings. The firefight lasted maybe 2 minutes, but felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, half of Versiani's men were down, the others surrendering. And Versiani himself, bleeding from a shoulder wound, was on his knees. Daniel approached him slowly, gun trained on his chest. It's over, Sergio. You can't prove anything. I don't need to. Daniel pulled out his phone, showing Versiani the screen. Recorded everything. Your confession. Your plan. Every family in Chicago will see this by dawn. Versiani's face went white. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Daniel's men melted away into the shadows, taking the surrendering guards with them. Only Daniel, Franco, and I remained when the cops arrived, along with Camila, who Franco had freed and wrapped in a jacket, and Sergio Versiani, whose empire had just collapsed around him. The police arrived in waves, red and blue lights painting the warehouse walls like a nightmare disco. Detective Sarah Chen was the first through the door, her weapon drawn, taking in the scene with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Everyone on the ground!" she shouted, then paused when she saw me standing next to Daniel, still shaking. "Amanda Morgan?" I nodded, unable to find words. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me hollow and trembling. "I know you," Chen continued, holstering her weapon as more officers flooded the space. "You translate for the FBI. What the hell are you doing here?" "She was kidnapped," Daniel said, his hand still protectively on my shoulder. "By him." He pointed to Versiani, who sat slumped against a crate, blood seeping through his jacket from the shoulder wound. "He took her friend as leverage." "Lies," Versiani spat. "He's Tavernucci. You know what he is." "What I know," Chen said slowly, pulling out her phone, "is that we've been tracking communications between your organization and the Bratva for 6 months. What I don't know is why a civilian translator is in the middle of this." Franco appeared from the shadows, Camila leaning heavily on his arm. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, the gag marks still visible on her cheeks. "Detective Chen," Camila managed, her voice hoarse. "I'm Camila Rodriguez, journalist with the Tribune. I was abducted from my apartment 4 hours ago. These men," she gestured to Versiani's crew, now being handcuffed by officers, "they took me to draw Amanda here. Versiani planned to kill us both and frame Mr. Tavernucci. And you have proof of this?" Daniel held up his phone. Complete audio recording of Versiani's confession. He detailed his entire plan before we arrived. Self-incrimination at its finest. Chen's expression shifted from suspicious to interested. "Play it." The recording was damning. Versiani's voice, crystal clear, explaining how he'd kill both of us and stage the scene. How he'd use our deaths to turn the other families against Daniel. How he'd been working with corrupt federal judges to protect his operations. "That judge he mentions," Chen said when the recording finished. "Judge William Hartford?" "Yes," Daniel confirmed. "I have additional evidence of their communications. Bribes, case fixing, the whole operation." Chen looked at Versiani with something close to satisfaction. "Sergio Versiani, you're under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and about 6 other charges I'll think of on the drive downtown." She nodded to the uniforms. "Take him." As they hauled Versiani to his feet, he looked directly at me. "This isn't over. You think Tavernucci's better than me? He's killed more people than I ever will. The difference," Daniel said coldly, "is I'm transitioning my family to legitimacy. You're just a dinosaur trying to hold on to a dying world. Enjoy federal prison." Versiani was dragged away, still cursing. Chen turned her attention back to us. "I'm going to need statements from all of you. And Mr. Tavernucci," she fixed Daniel with a hard stare, "I know you've been operating in gray areas for years. This recording helps us, but don't think it makes you clean." "I'm not asking to be clean," Daniel replied. "I'm asking for the chance to get there. Everything I've done tonight was in defense of these women. Check the warehouse security footage. You'll see Versiani's men attacked first. We will check. Chen gestured toward the door. For now, downtown. All of you. This is going to be a long night. She was right. The statements took hours, each of us separated into different rooms at the precinct. I recounted everything. The kidnapping, the threats, Daniel's arrival, the firefight. My hands shook as I signed the official report. Agent Morrison appeared around 3 a.m, looking exhausted and vindicated at once. Amanda, Detective Chen called me. You're lucky to be alive. I'm lucky Daniel got my message in time. About that, Morrison sat across from me in the interrogation room. Chen played me the recording. Versiani's confession. His connection to Judge Hartford. All of it. This is the break we've needed for years. So you believe me now? That I was a victim? Not a collaborator? I never stopped believing you were a victim. He ran a hand through his graying hair. I wanted you to be a witness, to help us take down Tavernucci too. But after tonight, after seeing how he protected you and handed us Versiani on a silver platter, I'm starting to think he's not the primary threat anymore. He's not, I said firmly. He's trying to go legitimate. Actually trying, not just saying it. Give him time. Time we might actually have now, with Versiani out of the picture. Morrison stood. You're free to go. We'll need you to testify when this goes to trial. But for now, you're clear. He paused at the door. Be careful with Tavernucci. Men like him don't change overnight no matter how much they want to. Daniel was waiting in the lobby when they released me. Sunrise painting the windows gold. He looked as exhausted as I felt. His suit jacket gone. His shirt still stained with Versiani's blood. Camila? I asked immediately. Franco took her home an hour ago. She's shaken but fine. Refused the hospital, demanded her own bed. His dark eyes searched my face. And you? I killed someone tonight. The words came out flat. One of Versiani's men. I picked up a gun and I shot him. To save Camila. Does that make it better? Does having a good reason erase the fact that My voice cracked. I ended a life, Daniel. I can see his face every time I close my eyes. He crossed the distance between us and pulled me into his arms. I collapsed against his chest, finally letting the tears come. All the fear, the adrenaline, the impossible weight of what I'd done. It poured out of me in ugly, heaving sobs. I know, Daniel murmured against my hair. I know what that weight feels like. And I'm sorry you had to carry it. But Amanda, you saved your friend. You did what you had to do. That's survival, not murder. How do you live with it? How do you wake up every day knowing, some days I don't. Some days I wake up and wish I'd made different choices, taken a different path. His arms tightened around me. But then I remember the people I've protected. The families who are safe because of decisions I made. It doesn't erase the blood, but it gives it meaning. We stood like that for a long time, me crying into his chest, him holding me through the storm. Finally, when I had no tears left, I pulled back. Take me home, I whispered. Please. To the estate? To wherever you are. That's home now. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or hope. He took my hand, and we walked out into the morning together. The next week passed in a blur of legal proceedings. Versiani was denied bail, flight risk and danger to the community. Judge Hartford was arrested on corruption charges. The FBI built their case with the recordings and evidence Daniel provided. And through it all, Daniel made sure I had space to process what had happened. He arranged a therapist, someone who specialized in trauma. He never asked about my sessions, just made sure I went. And at night, when the nightmares came, he was there. Sometimes just sitting in a chair in my room until I fell back asleep. Sometimes holding my hand across the darkness, never pushing for more than I could give. 10 days after the warehouse, I found him in his office late at night, staring at blueprints spread across his desk. What are those? I asked from the doorway. He looked up, surprised. Plans for a community center. One of the neighborhoods we operate in needs safe spaces for kids. I thought. He stopped, almost sheepish. I studied architecture once. Thought maybe I could design something that actually helps people. I moved closer, studying the careful sketches. They were beautiful. functional but artistic. A building that would serve its community and elevate it at the same time. This is who you wanted to be, I said softly. It's who I'm trying to become. He set down his pencil. The transition is ahead of schedule. Versiani's arrest created a power vacuum. The other families are scrambling to fill it. I'm using that chaos to finish moving everything legitimate. Another year, maybe less, and the Tavernucci name will be clean. And then I build things instead of breaking them. Then I try to be the man my mother wanted me to be. He met my eyes. If you're still here to see it. I took his face in my hands, feeling the stubble on his jaw, seeing the hope and fear warring in his expression. I killed someone for you, for the people you protect. I crossed that line, Daniel. There's no going back to who I was before. Amanda, I'm not finished. I cut him off. I crossed that line because I love you. Because somewhere between you saving my life and teaching me to dance, I fell completely in love with you. And that terrifies me more than Versiani ever did. You don't have to. I do. I have to say it. I love you, Daniel Tavernucci. Not despite who you are, but because of it. Because you carry impossible weight and still try to do better. Because you saved me when you could have walked away. Because you're building community centers when you should be consolidating power. I pressed my forehead to his. So yes, I'm still going to be here. For as long as you'll have me. His hands came up to cover mine, holding them against his face. Forever then. If you're offering, forever sounds terrifying. Everything worth having is. He kissed me, and this time there was no hesitation. No pulling back. Just us. Finally letting down the walls we'd built. Finally admitting what we both knew. I was his. He was mine. And whatever came next, we'd face it together. 3 weeks crawled by in a strange limbo. The FBI released me after a week of interrogations, their questions finally satisfied by consistent statements and the mountain of evidence against Versiani. Agent Morrison even apologized, admitting they'd underestimated how dangerous my situation had become. Versiani was denied bail. Judge Hartford faced impeachment proceedings. The Russian contacts disappeared back into shadows. And Daniel's lawyers ensured that his involvement was framed exactly as it was, defensive action to protect civilians from a known threat. I moved into a temporary apartment downtown, needing space from the estate to process everything. The nightmares came every night. The man I'd shot, the warehouse, the sound of gunfire. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, said it was normal. PTSD took time to work through. Some days I believed her. Daniel respected my distance. He didn't call, didn't push, didn't demand anything. But every morning, wildflowers appeared at my door. Never roses, too expected. Instead, daisies, lavender, sunflowers. Each bouquet came with a simple note. You're stronger than you know. Thinking of you. Take all the time you need. Camilla recovered faster than I did, throwing herself back into journalism with fierce determination. She was writing an exposé on judicial corruption that would win awards. And she visited me 3 times a week, bringing takeout and forcing me to talk about things that weren't nightmares. You love him, she said one evening, sprawled on my couch with Chinese food. So what are you waiting for? I'm waiting to be sure, I replied, that this isn't just trauma bonding, that I'm choosing him, not just choosing safety, and I am sure. Have been for weeks. I'm just scared. Of what? Of losing myself completely. Of becoming someone I don't recognize. Camilla set down her food and took my hand. Amanda, you ran into a warehouse to save me. You shot a man to protect me. You testified against a Mafia boss without flinching. You haven't lost yourself. You found strength you didn't know you had. That night, I made my decision. The next morning, I drove to Daniel's estate. Franco let me through the gates with a knowing smile. I found Daniel in his office, surrounded by blueprints for the community center. He looked up when I entered, and the hope in his eyes made my chest ache. Amanda, he stood slowly, like he was afraid I might disappear. Are you all right? No, I said honestly. I'm not all right. I have nightmares. I see that man's face every time I close my eyes. I jump at loud noises. I'm broken in ways I'm still discovering. His expression fell. I'm sorry. If I could take that burden from you, I'm not finished. I moved closer. I'm broken. But I'm also still here, still breathing, still choosing to move forward. And part of that choice is about you. He went very still. What about me? I reached up and unclasped the antique ring from my finger. The metal was warm from constant wear, familiar. I held it out to him. This was never real. We both know that. You put this on my finger to save my life, and it did. But I can't keep wearing a symbol of something fake when what I feel is real. Daniel took the ring, his jaw tight. I understand. Do you? I stepped closer. Because I'm not walking away, Daniel. I'm asking you to start over. For real this time. No fake engagements. No protection arrangements. Just two people who want to know each other without the weight of all this. His eyes searched mine. Are you certain? Once we do this, once we make it real, there's no taking it back. My world will always be complicated. Your world is transitioning to legitimate business. You told me yourself, another year and the Tavernucci name is clean. Another year of risk, of potential danger, of me carrying weights you shouldn't have to share. Then let me help carry them. I took his face in my hands. I love you, Daniel. Not the version of you that saved me. Not the mafia boss or the architect or any single piece. All of it. All of you. The man who plays piano at midnight and designs community centers and still grieves his sister. The man who's trying so damn hard to be better than what he was born into. That's who I choose. He pulled me against him, holding me like I was the only solid thing in his universe. I love you too. Have since the moment you challenged me in this office. Since you refused to be intimidated. Since you chose to stay even when staying was terrifying. So we do this? For real? For real. He kissed my forehead. No rush. No pressure. We date like normal people. We figure out who we are together without the weight of survival pressing down. Starting when? Starting now. He smiled, and it transformed his face. Let me take you to dinner. Somewhere normal. Somewhere I can court you properly. Courting? How old-fashioned. I'm Italian. We're traditional about these things. I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in weeks. Then court away, Mr. Tavernucci. 6 months later, everything had changed. And nothing had changed. Daniel and I stood at Lucia's grave on a Sunday morning. The Chicago spring painting, everything green and gold. He laid flowers at the headstone. Wildflowers. Like the ones he'd sent me every day during our separation. She would have liked you, he said quietly. You're stubborn like she was. Brave like she was. I wish I could have known her. Me too. He took my hand. The gesture natural now. Easy. But I think she'd be happy. Knowing I finally found someone who sees past all the armor. We drove to the care facility next, visiting my grandmother. Her memory was worse, but she recognized Daniel, had adopted him into her confused reality as the grandson she'd always wanted. He sat with her patiently, listening to the same stories she'd told a dozen times, making her laugh with gentle jokes. This was our routine now. Sunday mornings for the dead and the living. The rest of the week divided between his architectural projects and my translation work. Only legitimate documents now. Nothing that touched crime. That evening, Daniel took me to a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood I'd never visited. Not expensive or flashy. Just good food and warm lighting and the kind of place where locals gathered. No security? I noticed for the first time. No men in suits hovering nearby. Don't need them anymore. He wore jeans and a dark blue sweater. More casual than I'd ever seen him. The transition's complete. All legitimate holdings. The families accepted it. We're just normal now. Normal. I tested the word. Is that what we are? No. He smiled. We'll never be normal. But we're us. And that's better. After dinner, he drove us to the community center construction site. It was nearly finished. His design coming to life in glass and stone and purpose. It's beautiful, I said, walking through the skeleton of what would soon be a safe space for kids who needed it. It's a start. Daniel caught my hand, pulling me to face him. I want to build more. Not just buildings. A life, a future, something that matters. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, not the ornate antique from before. Something simple, elegant. 6 months ago, I put a ring on your finger out of desperation. To save you, to bind you to me through fear and necessity. He opened the box, revealing a delicate band with a single stone that caught the construction lights. Today, I'm asking you to wear one by choice. Not because you need protection, not because you're scared, but because you want to build something with me. A real future, a real life. My throat tightened. Daniel, marry me, Amanda. Not as a convenience, not as a shield, but as my partner, my equal, the woman I love more than I knew I could love anyone. The ring glittered between us, full of possibility. I looked at this man who'd saved me, protected me, let me go, and asked me to come back. This man who was building beauty from ashes. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto my finger, and this time it meant everything. This time it was real, and when he kissed me, surrounded by the bones of something he was creating, I knew we were building something too. Something stronger than fear. Something born from choice, not circumstance. Something that would last,